Talk to a lot of young people on campuses, at our events, on my radio show, podcast, and social media. Said differently, I visit college campuses so you don't have to. We're talking to so many voters that know it is time for change. They know that something is wrong. America's future is a series of choices. Our current state of slow motion national decline is a choice. Today is our 2-year-old's birthday. And I look at my daughter, and that is my why. For those that are parents, you know exactly what I mean.
There is no mountain that stands tall as your faithfulness, and there's nothing else I'll ever need. All of my days, your mercy follow me.
If the people want it, the people get it. And we, the people, take back America. God bless Arizona, and thank you so much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jack Posobiec here, live in Washington, D.C. And today, I'm sitting in a chair that I never wanted to sit in. I'm sitting in a chair that I never hoped to be in, that I don't want to be in, but I'm going to be here. Because I know that's where Charlie would want me to be today. And I'm not just here as, I don't know, MAGA Posobiec or fellow conservative firebrand to the world. You know, Charlie Kirk was conservative firebrand, hero, cultural icon. But to me, he was my friend. And it's been the honor of my life to be standing shoulder to shoulder with him in this great fight. And so it's with a very heavy heart that I sit in this chair on this show that he built, on the platform that he poured his soul into, because Charlie is no longer with us. He was taken from us in an act of left-wing political violence, of terrorism, assassinated. Yet even in his final moments, Charlie was doing what he always did, standing tall, speaking boldly, proclaiming the truth without fear. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Charlie Kirk isn't just an American martyr. Charlie Kirk is a Christian martyr. And I've got right here one of those hats. And Charlie signed right there. I'm never going to let it go. And I'm always going to keep it right here with me. Because Charlie's always going to be here with me, with you, with all of us. And he's watching us all right now. And what is Charlie saying? It's your turn. It's your turn. Lock in, patriots. Charlie's faith in Christ Jesus was not just a private belief, it was the foundation of his entire life. The courage that he had to go into the battle that he went into every day on every campus was the courage straight from heaven. It was the Lord's. He spoke with the conviction because he believed the truth of Scripture, and he was unshakable. And he gave of himself tirelessly. He loved his family, his friends, and this country that he knew God had blessed in a very special way. So today, we're not just going to remember the man who founded Turning Point USA or hosted this show or owned the libs. We're remembering the son, the husband, the father, the friend, the mentor, and the warrior who never wavered. Charlie Kirk died with his boots on and a microphone in his hand, proclaiming the truth on campus, his eyes fixed on eternity. He'll be forever 31. So as we begin this memorial podcast, let us not only mourn his loss, Erica's loss, their children's loss, let's also commit ourselves to carrying forward his mission. Because the mission of Charlie Kirk, the mission of Turning Point USA goes on, and it will never stop. Charlie wouldn't want us to retreat. No, the word was not in his vocabulary. He would want us to fight with truth, with faith, with love for this nation, and for each other. They couldn't debate him, so they shot him. That's what happened. And everybody needs to understand that. What was his crime? Talking. He just wanted to talk. And that was too much for you. We're going to be here today. We're going to be remembering Charlie, and we are going to do everything we can to make sure that his sacrifice, that his fight will never end, will never stop, and will never quit. We'll never quit because he never did. We'll be right back. Jack Posobiec here, the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show. Folks, we're back here. Jack Posobiec, the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show. We've got our hats right here. And if you were ever anyone who happened to have a hat that was thrown out by Charlie Kirk or signed by Charlie Kirk, I'm actually going to say something right now that, kind of outside of memorial, but I'm just going to say it because I think it needs to be said. If you have one of those hats that's signed by Charlie Kirk, do us all a favor. Don't put it on eBay. Don't be that person. Just that's not what Charlie was about. Charlie was never about that. He was never about trying to turn this into something that was personal, because it wasn't about him. It was about the country. It was about students. It was about young men, young women connecting, and it was about winning. It was never about playing these games. It just wasn't about. And as a guy who knew Charlie, it was not about that. Guys, did I see Andrew there? Okay, so working on, I want to get one of the guests on, but I'd love to play now I think we have some visuals, these vigils that have been popping up overnight and completely organic, completely not planned at all across the country. The South, the North, the East, the West, they're everywhere. They're praying rosaries in Scottsdale, where Charlie and Erica lived. They're spontaneously doing this. Charlie Kirk spent his entire career trying to inspire a turning point in America. He spent his entire career trying to inspire a turning point in America. And he's done it. He has completed that mission. America now has a turning point. And that was Charlie's gift to all of us. Charlie's gift of his time, his energy, his courage, and ultimately his life. Got my good friend and Charlie's good friend, Andrew Colvett. You guys know him, producer Andrew. We'll get him on here. Andrew, how you holding up, man?
Hey, Jack. Just want to say thank you, first of all, for hosting today. I know it's not easy for you either. And I mean, I'm holding up as well as you can imagine. You know, I was hosting the show yesterday for Charlie so that he could go to the campus stop in Utah. And you know, you just don't, you're never prepared for something like this, obviously. And you know, but I know he would want me, and he would want you and all of us to keep going. I know he'd want me to do this, and so we do the best we can, and
Well, you know, the thing with Charlie too is I remember when you and I were chatting, or you know, some of the gang was chatting last night, there wasn't even a question of would we have a show today. There wasn't even a question of, you know, would Turning Point keep moving forward. There wasn't a question of that because that's who Charlie was. And I remember we were saying, should I, you know, come up and do shows? Should I fly out there? What do you think? And I could hear Charlie's voice in my head. And he would always say to me, he said, because whenever I would go to him with a question and say, Charlie, I've got a choice I have to make. Do I need to, gut check? What do you think? Do this or do that? He'd say, do everything. Do everything.
Yeah,
He would say, keep going, do it all, do everything, be everywhere. That was Charlie.
I think he was secretly mad we weren't streaming last night.
I 100%. We all had the same thought at the same time, that we all know that when something big is going on, when something big is happening, Charlie Kirk would be like, let's get in there, let's go, live stream it, get it up, make sure we get the Rumble live, make sure it's all going. We got everybody in, freedom@charliekirk.com, freedom@charliekirk.com. Make sure you're all signed up, subscribe to the podcast. And that was Charlie, right? Because he just wanted to gather people together. And I actually think that's sort of Charlie's mission, or maybe it was his great skill in life, that he was a gatherer of people, or, of course, to use the biblical phrase, a fisher of men. Charlie Kirk truly was a fisher of men, and I actually hadn't even thought about it that way until just this minute, but that's exactly what he was, is that he had that ability to go into a crowd of strangers, and he could get everyone together, and he could turn them into followers, and he could activate them, politically, and he could motivate people. And that is not something that you can learn. That is a talent that was given to him from God. And now he's on another assignment for God. And we don't know, and we can't really understand that, but that's what it is. That's what it is.
My one pushback, Jack, is that I watched Charlie Kirk be terrible at a bunch of things, and he learned how to be good. He learned how to be good at them by sheer force of will. He refused to not be good at things that he needed to be good at, and he learned a lot of that stuff. Yes, he was blessed by God with this engine, this motor that you couldn't hold back. He was blessed by God with just a spirit that you couldn't keep down. He was a happy warrior. He genuinely was a happy warrior. And he loved this country. He loved his family, and he loved God. And all of those things were true. And that drove him to be the absolute best he could be. It drove him to study the ancient texts. It drove him to study political philosophy and read the important books and the great books. And it drove him to I have a story. We were coming back from Aspen with Dr. James Orr from Cambridge, who's become a good friend. And we spent the whole plane ride and then talking about what James knew, picking his brain. And then Charlie looked at him and he said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Can you spend the entire day with me on a Sunday? And I'm just going to ask you questions. And so Cambridge professor sitting there teaching, coaching Charlie for an entire Sunday. That was his idea of a good time. And that was Charlie. He wanted so badly just to keep growing and be infinitely curious and getting better so he could articulate his ideas better to the next generation, so that he could go out to these campus events and be more equipped and ready no matter what the question was. And he ultimately put that same sort of energy into his family and into his marriage. And he wanted to be the best husband he could be, and he wanted to be the best father he could be. and he knew that the demands on his time were extraordinary, that they were superhuman. And so he threw himself into, biohacking and how he could get the most out of his body and how he could sleep the deepest and how he could keep his energy the highest. And then he would spend his...
We should actually talk about the biohacking, because I actually don't think that people know that about Charlie. And he would probably appreciate if we shared it, because he was actually as much of an evangelist as he was for Jesus, he was also an evangelist for biohacking. In fact, if you talk to him long enough, he would say that they're connected, because that's exactly how he saw it. I mean, Charlie was a cold plunge every single morning kind of guy. Andrew, you know better than anyone. Was there coffee in those coffee cups from Starbucks?
No, there was not.
Nope.
There was a very specific mint tea with 2 honeys, and not that fake honey. It had to be the real honey, and that syrup stuff. And he had a regimen of supplements he would take, and he was very big on sleep. He felt he could get the most out of his body if he got proper sleep, and so he was religious about how much sleep he got, because he noticed that kept him high, kept his retention high. And he did that also, and this is kind of the final point, that he did that because he knew that the demands on him were so extraordinary that if he was going to go home and be with his family and his kids, he had to have energy left. And so he did everything he could to make sure that he had maximum energy left for his kids. And he's not Jewish, but he would do a Shabbat where he would unplug. It was like a digital Shabbat. At Friday at sundown, he was off, and he wouldn't come back on until usually late at night on a Saturday. I know because anytime there was a Saturday, whenever something would come up, it's like Andrew has to figure it out. So it always falls to Andrew. If it's if it was big enough, you gotta call Erica or get some other people involved. And I remember taking some of those calls from you on a Saturday. Jack, I can't get to Charlie. Andrew, before we go, there's something that just broke right before we came into the segment here, and I think we'd be remiss to miss it, regarding this situation that, of course, everyone's looking into. I do want to cover this, though, because it is breaking news. The FBI has released images of who they believe is a person of interest in connection with the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. They put out a tip line, 1-800-CALL-FBI. There are also digital media tips. It is fbi.gov/Utah Valley shooting. And so you can see this individual seems to be college age, thin, I'd say rail thin, average height, glasses, again, a hat, clearly someone who, some kind of patriotic lettering or logo. So clearly someone who was attempting to blend in with the crowd who was there. They have not told us whether or not this is the shooter, but here's what I'm going to say. Even if you didn't see that person, okay, if you were at that event yesterday, and Andrew, I certainly hope, if the team's available or has footage that they haven't yet turned over to the FBI, scroll through your phone, scroll through your videos, go frame by frame, just see if you can find this person, these glasses, this hat, this logo anywhere in the crowd, because that is, and if they could throw that back up again real quick, because that is going to be a way to potentially determine if he was talking to anyone, what he was up to, what direction he went in, any of those things. So if you were there, or if you just recognize him from this, please go ahead and share that out with the FBI. We'll cover that as we can. Obviously, there's been a lot of questions going on as to what happens, and I don't want to turn this into huge speculation about that. I want to make this about Charlie, but at the same time, if there are official updates, we're going to share them as we can. Andrew, do you want to take us out? Yeah, I mean, I hope they get this guy or guys. If it was coordinated, if it was sophisticated and well-funded, as some of the rumors that I'm hearing are, I hope they get them all. From root to stem, I hope they get them all. And I hope righteous justice is visited upon whoever was behind this. And so please...
There's no question about that. Jack Posobiec will be right back. The Charlie Kirk Memorial Show. The Larker's Voice. Jack Posobiec, we are back here. We're live in Washington, D.C. This is the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show, a memorial for a fallen friend. I'm very honored that we are now joined by someone who knew Charlie very well. It is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for joining on this today. And although I just have to say for myself, and I'm sure you as well, I would much rather be talking to you about literally any other subject.
Of course, Jack, you're doing a great job with an impossible assignment today. I mean, I should have wondered last night who would be in the chair today, because the nation needs to hear what you're sharing and what we're all sharing. I can tell you it has changed the atmosphere of Capitol Hill. It began immediately after this event. I was in a high-level meeting, and my chief of staff burst in the door and handed me a card and said, "Charlie Kirk has been shot." And I stopped, and I mean, we had, these are like heads of state, and we all just paused, and I told them what was on the card, and it still seems unbelievable to me. I mean, we're all kind of in shock here. Charlie was a singular voice, as you know. I mean, this show is about him. It's a tribute to him. He deserves it. He deserves so much more, because there are few people who had such an effect on the country and on his generation. I did all the, media shows last night. I was on CNN. I said, we talk a lot about the free marketplace of ideas, and I think it is undeniable. I don't think anyone can argue. Charlie Kirk contributed more productive content to the free marketplace of ideas than anyone in his generation, and arguably in several generations. I mean, he just was that kind of figure, and he's irreplaceable. But I'm comforted to know, Jack, that his legacy will continue, because what he did and what he started will go on. And I hope it inspires in the hearts of everybody who followed and loved him and believed in him and prayed for him, that same spirit that Charlie carried, to not give in, to stand for freedom, stand for the truth, and love the people on the other side of the argument. And that's what he represented.
And I was saying this, we were on last night, and when you would go to these events with Charlie, he would actually say, if you disagree with me, come to the front of the line. I don't want you to ride in the back of the bus. Come to the very front of the line. Let's have it out. Let's talk. And he had this ability to kind of get past the argument, the politics of it, and see if there was this was his move, right? His skill. He would try to connect with the person, find out what made them tick, find out who they were at their core, and then start there. And you've never seen anyone do it like that before.
No, he was so talented because he had that gift. It's a gift from God, a gift from the Lord, to be able to go to the heart of the matter and the heart of the person. Because what Charlie was motivated by, you and I both know, I knew him so well, and he was a man of deep faith as I am, and we talked about this a lot, that the objective is not just to win the argument. The objective is to move the heart, right? And what Charlie was about was trying to advance the permanent things. He was a master in the temporal things, right? He could argue any issue better than anybody, better than most people on Capitol Hill could ever hope to. And he could talk about public policy or issues that were pending. He was a master of his science in that regard, political science and all of that. But really, what it was really about was not winning the temporal argument or that particular issue. It was about the permanent things, the eternal things, the scripture says. The Apostle Paul said, we don't focus on the temporal, we focus on the eternal. And that's what Charlie was about, because he was trying to be an ambassador for the King of Kings. He was trying to be an ambassador for his Savior, Jesus. And he modeled that. And so, what I love about Charlie, and I said this to a big gaggle of reporters here this morning, because they're following me around. They want me to just give comment at every turn about this, and because they know I knew him well and loved him, and it's moved us so much. But this is what I said about Charlie, is I said, the thing about it was, he was the sharpest wit. He could argue and win any debate, but he never held it personally against the person on the other side, no matter how far to the other end of the spectrum they were. In fact, the further they were, the more compassion he had for their heart, because he believed that he was ultimately trying to lead people to the truth that we know, the eternal truth, right? And so what Christ taught us is that it says in Romans 12 that you stand strong, you be courageous and bold, and you stand firm, and you act like men, it says, which Charlie was, a man's man. But let all that you do be done in love. That's what Scripture says. And that's what Charlie was about. And he was motivated by his love for his fellow man. He didn't hate anybody. He was trying to win them over to the argument because he knew that would be better for them in the long run. And that's what we appreciated about him so much.
And we opened the show with that, and I said, "Greater love hath no man than this. He gives his life for his friends." And I'm sure, Speaker, I'm sure you're on Charlie's list as well, because you could always tell what Charlie was focusing on in the Bible, because he would pull a quote every morning and he would just text it to his whole list of people individually. I said, "How are you doing this, Charlie?" And I would see him doing it sometimes if we were together, and it wasn't just some ephemeral thing where he's pulling it from one of those verses of the day or different things. And those are fine, but no, this was deep study, and he pulled those verses for a specific reason. And in a strange way, when I woke up this morning and I didn't get that text from Charlie, it's almost like that's when it hit me. Yeah, because he always does that every single day, except Saturday, but every single day. And today he didn't.
Yeah, it leaves a big void, not just in the text chain, but in our society. There are more than 2,500 chapters, Turning Point chapters on university campuses around the country. I mean, it's just an unequaled movement that he began and grew and stewarded as a great steward, by the way, of the platform that God gave him. He was faithful in the little things, and then God trusted him with more and more. He had one of the biggest voices in the culture, and he knew the responsibility that came with that, and he was very careful with it. And that's why he was so deep in the scripture and in prayer, because he wanted to make sure that he carried that mantle well, and he did. We know where he is right now. I'm absolutely convinced where he is, and he's hearing that great call, "Well done, good and faithful servant," right? But the people that are behind, we have to remember, you got to carry on.
Mr. Speaker, we're coming up. We're coming up on a quick break here. Are you able to hang out for a couple more minutes on the other side? All right, we'll hold Speaker Johnson for just a little bit more. We're on Charlie Kirk Memorial Show. There's the flag at half-mast out front of the White House for our friend Charlie. Folks, we're back. Jack Posobiec. This is the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show. You're looking at the Stars and Stripes half-mast there. I believe that's the north lawn of the White House that you're looking at. And today we are holding a memorial for Charlie, greatest man we knew. And we're on with Speaker Mike Johnson, and we're discussing this. Speaker Johnson, President Trump earlier today at the 9/11 memorial, and of course today is 9/11. It certainly feels like 9/11 again, that he announced that Charlie will be at some upcoming date posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Do you know anything about that or potential other memorials that around D.C. that maybe up at the Capitol that are being discussed?
Yeah, there's a lot being discussed. It's interesting. I talked to the president at length yesterday, probably about an hour before this event took place, and I have not spoken to him since. And so he was busy all last night, and I was, and this morning I'm going to call him here shortly. But I know that the president felt very close to Charlie. He was like family, as you know, in the Trump family, and we all shared that same. So many people, so many members of Congress, Republican members in the House, for certain, all of my closest friends here, they all felt a close connection to Charlie because he made everybody feel that way. And because of that, there's just sort of this big movement now that members are just one after the other are coming up with ideas on how to memorialize him and how to have an appropriate, remembrance. And there are lots of ideas. There's different resolutions. Some of them were begun to be filed in the record, yesterday evening, shortly after all this took place. So we got to sort all that out. I'm going to have a collection, a stack of ideas of things of how to do this, and we'll figure it out. But we want to do something certainly that is appropriate for his stature and what he meant to the country, what he meant to the conservative movement, what he meant to our party. But it really does transcend party, because Charlie, in so many ways, represented the best of America, like all of us, right? He obviously was on our team. He was one of the principal conservative voices in the culture. But even larger than that, he represented the best of America. And, Charlie believed in and he tried to advance and share with the next generation the principles of freedom. He believed and he understood that the foundation of all this is our Judeo-Christian heritage, the great tradition that we have that began 250 years ago when we boldly proclaimed the self-evident truth that our rights come from God, not the government, and that God made us in his image and we owe a responsibility to him. I mean, Charlie understood what made America different and exceptional and the greatest nation in the history of the world. And he was so passionate about making sure the next generation understood that, even the people that didn't agree with him. That was his drive. And so he represents so much. And all that is to say that there's an appropriate level of memorialization of this great life that is, not suited for most. And we got to sort that out and figure it out. And that's what we'll be doing in the next couple of days.
I think that's absolutely right. I think that's absolutely appropriate. And I've also been privy to some of the ideas and memorial ideas and perhaps naming ideas of maybe a park or something that, tied with the 250th. People have been kicking around that because Charlie loved the outdoors. That's something that actually people don't, you see him on campus, you see him on camera, but, every single minute he could get in the sun. He was a big believer, big MAGA guy, and always believed in the power of being outside and believed in our country. This past weekend, he went to Korea, which I believe Korea, Japan will end up being his last tour. And that was the first time he'd been to that part of the world. And he just loved America so much and traveled to, I remember he used to tell me he was so proud that he'd visited every state twice. He said, "I got every state twice, Jack. You have all 50 yet?" And that's so he and I were always ribbing each other, and that's the I think that's what in many ways I'll miss that the most, just the little debates and the camaraderie that you have with him. Mr. Speaker, I understand you obviously have quite a lot on your plate as well today. Just is there any other message that you wanted to give for the folks that are watching before we take off?
Well, I'll just say this. I mean, because you touched on it there, he traveled to all 50 states more than once. He was a singular figure in history because I heard yesterday some people comparing Charlie in a way, his stature, his intelligence, his character, his demeanor, his integrity to that of the founding fathers. I mean, he kind of had that spirit about him, right, as we know. And what's interesting about Charlie as opposed to our forefathers is that he had the ability of technology, of modern transportation means. He could take the voice everywhere, and he did. I mean, he used every platform available. I mean, radio, podcast, everywhere, television. He was ubiquitous. And he used the platform that God gave him to the greatest extent possible. In fact, he was a pioneer in that regard. I mean, people said, well, he aspired to be like Rush Limbaugh. He went further than Rush in many ways because he mastered all these other mediums, right? And he did more than the founders could have ever imagined to advance the principles that they set in place. And it is very appropriate on the eve of our 250th birthday as a nation, the greatest nation in the history of the world, that we had a figure like this for such a short time, and he left such a tremendous legacy for the next chapter of American history that we're all going to forge together. And I hope we do it in the spirit that Charlie left us with, not timidly, but boldly, but in love. And that is his greatest contribution. So, Jack, thanks. You're doing an extraordinary job on an impossible assignment. Appreciate you, brother. We'll see you soon.
Speaker Johnson, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your kind words today for Charlie and his family. Just piggybacking on what he said there, the founding fathers, they certainly used new media at their time as well. The printing press is indelibly and inextricably linked to the founding generation. So the new media of the time, Thomas Paine, Common Sense, that was the new media that was going viral. And I just wanted to read something just very quickly before I bring our next guest on. People were talking about the ages of the revolutionary generation. And one thing that I don't think people realize, so Charlie's 31. When Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, 1776, he was 33 years old. John Hancock was 39 when he signed it. Patrick Henry, 40. John Adams, 40. James Monroe, 18 years old. Alexander Hamilton, 21 years old. James Madison, 25 years old. And Edward Rutledge and Thomas Hayward, 29 years old. And Washington was 44. Ben Franklin, of course, was the old man of the group. He was 70. So when you look at the revolutionary generation, they were the exact same age as Charlie and the age of the people that he's trying to reach, and even the next generation of them. I want to bring on Tyler Boyer here, the COO of Turning Point Action, and just Charlie's right-hand man in so many things. And Tyler, as a student of history as you are, had it ever occurred to you that, that's the exact age Charlie was?
Well, first off, Jack, I just want to say this is thank you for taking on the job of standing up for Charlie's show today. He wouldn't have wanted it any other way than, his partner in crime, in which you've been his right hand guy and doing so much of media on Real America's Voice and on radio and everything else. So thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, I look at the group, that picture just came up of the 4 or 5 of us, Andrew, who I think was on earlier, yourself, me, Charlie. Like, we have some young guys. Like, when I got involved with Charlie, I'm 8 years older than him, and I was in my mid-20s. When I was getting involved with Turning Point and with Charlie and starting to take, that bull by the horns. Charlie was a teenager, so we feel old, and we're on the precipice here, because you, me, I think Benny Johnson and Andrew are all basically the same age, and we're a little bit older than Charlie, about 7 or 8 years older than him, each of us. But we're all under the age of 40 clearly, and have been doing this work for the last 10 to 15 years. Charlie's legacy is that he was the young guy in that group when you make the comparison to that, but he was the leader. And the thing that we've reflected on this entire time, for the last 24 hours in particular, is Charlie has always been a leader amongst men. I remember meeting him again in my 20s, and he was basically just coming out of his teenage years. And I just thought to myself, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's like an 85-year-old trapped in a 20-year-old's body.
He was an old soul. He always was.
But he was like that. He was like that Lincoln-esque, Ben Franklin-esque, the way you read it in the textbook as a wise person. That's the kind of, and I know everybody's listening that listens to the show frequently.
He just had that sense. He had that sense that came from somewhere else. Tyler, we're up on a hard break. Just hold that. We'll bring you over, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I that's what I want to do here today. I want to talk about who Charlie the person was, the Charlie that beyond the cameras and screens and TikToks and debates and everything else, the man that Charlie was, our friend. Our fallen friend. Be right back. Jack Posobiec, we're back here. Just, I would rather be talking about anything else today, anything else under the sun. But we're here because I know this is what Charlie would have wanted, and I know that, for once, Charlie Kirk is in the audience right now. And Charlie Kirk is watching all of us. I said in the beginning of the show, I'll say it here again. I know what Charlie's message would be to everyone asking, what do I do next? What do I do next? It's very simple. Charlie would say, it's your turn now. I want to bring back on Tyler Boyer, one of Charlie's closest associates, and Tyler, we were just kind of talking about that, about how, personally, as many things that Charlie was interested in and involved in, even non-political things. Andrew and I were talking about the biohacking, earlier, that he was just fascinated with that and lived it, theology, that he was a simple. He had this tenacity and this ability to make the complex simple, and just in so many realms outside of the things that you see or that you know him for. That's just who he was, no matter what he was doing.
Yeah, and that's really the legacy of Turning Point USA. I mean, we talked about this all the time. Most people don't really connect the dots on this, but when we came onto the scene and really Charlie started Turning Point USA, there were no battle tanks. It was all think tanks. And we used to talk about this point, which is, there's all these think tanks out there making things really hard to reach for the average American, a little bit overcomplicated, a little bit over convoluted. And there just weren't enough battle tanks of people going out and fighting the good fight, or just as you said, is making the really smart things, the complex things, simple, so that the average American could understand them, that the average American would want to understand them, that they would want to engage them. This is the whole thing, is like, this is what Charlie died doing, was this very issue. I mean, you listen to Charlie, and you and I both know Charlie better than just about anybody. Andrew, who was on earlier, and there's a number of us in our senior team at Turning Point USA and Turning Point Action. But people knew Charlie as a genius. You met Charlie, you talked to him. He was an absolute genius of a man, but he spoke and broke things down so simply and so easily so that everybody could really approach it. And that's what's made politics approachable. That's what's, I think, has got so many young people through Turning Point USA involved. That's what's got so many young men being able to embrace the qualities of what the Christianity that Charlie professed, and that's what he would want everybody to know him by. But his activism as well, being a dad and being a husband, those things are not complex things. But the world is complicated, and the challenges are complicated, but the application of those things is really simple. And I think that's the memorial that we'll have for Charlie forever, and that I hope that my dear friend that I have known for so long, since essentially the beginning of time. I was joking with Benny Johnson earlier today that we had to convince Charlie to start his Instagram. And you wouldn't believe that, knowing Charlie today, of how, Speaker Johnson just said he dominated all these mediums. Rush Limbaugh didn't dominate social media or have a full 501c3 or C4 and employ thousands of people. The man did everything. He did it all. But he made it so simple for everyone to approach and be able to engage with. And I will greatly, greatly miss him for that, because there's no one that is like Charlie. There's no one. It's not likely we'll ever encounter someone that's able to do all those things.
No, and I agree with you that there was something timeless, but also outside of time about Charlie. There was just, he just didn't seem to be of this era. And I'm not even sure what era he belonged in. He just, the way he fit in the world, but also was different from anyone else that you would meet. I mean, it's just, God knew what he was doing when he made Charlie. God gave him assignment, and now God's got him on another assignment, and that's how it is. And he's up there with Rush now. And well, Tyler, let me ask you this though. Charlie, obviously he's been building Turning Point USA, building Turning Point Action all of these years. He built these institutions to last. And yeah. I always got the sense, I never really talked to him about this directly, but I always got the sense that he wanted Turning Point USA to be separate from him, in the sense that it would always go on, because it was always about the students. It was always about the chapters, and the chapters were constantly changing. And what does that look like from your perspective?
Well, and we talked about that all the time. Having the honor of being COO of Turning Point USA for many years, and now Turning Point Action, and having hired and worked with thousands and thousands of people. The greatest legacy that Charlie has is that he infused his energy, his resilience, his constant need for improvement for the conservative movement. Because when we really start engaging on many of these things, the question was, wow, why doesn't the conservative movement have good enough events? Why aren't we attracting enough people? We got to do it bigger and better. Why is there no one that has a real legitimate field program and operation that supports young people? We got to do it bigger and better. Why is there no 501c4 political operation that's out there actually doing it the way that the left does it with community organizers, and we got to do it bigger and better. And just each and every one of those things. And that's not even touching all the individual unique things on the media front, the podcast front, the, TikTok obviously is the second largest voice on TikTok next to Donald Trump this year. And I mean, you're just talking about a monster of a human being, irreplicable, that desire to fight and work. And, I was just talking about this as well. It's just like one of the quotes was, don't care, keep working. Don't care, work harder. We talked about hating to lose, how devastating the 2020 election was, and how horrified we were to learn that there wasn't enough work being done on the political side, which caused Turning Point Action to really, kick into gear, really following in the lead up to 2022 and following 2022 for 2024. I mean, that was really the first time anyone's ever done anything like we did, was throwing the kitchen sink at the thing. And Charlie was leading from the front on that. And there's no one else.
And I could tell because, of course, there's that election night live stream, 2022. It's me, you, Charlie, Andrew was in and out, and we were doing remember the batches, another batches in, another batches in, another batches in. And I remember doing the math till late in the wee hours. And I can remember the moment where Charlie just turns to me. I don't even know if it was on air. And he just turns to me sitting there and says, Jack, we need to start doing ballots. Yep. And you could just see it in his eyes. He said, they won this thing with ballots, and we need to start doing that. And I could tell just in that moment, again, very simple, that he took this whole complicated thing and he had figured it all out, and he was doing the math. You could see him doing it furiously, just scribbling away and doing the math in real time, like Rain Man, And he said, it's all ballots. And so we need to chase ballots. And I could tell in that movement, everything that was going to happen in that moment, everything that would happen between then and 2024. And that's exactly what happened. And he knew that he had you to execute it.
I was talking with his sweet wife, who all the prayers, we need to be praying unceasingly for Erica and his two sweet babies. That I just was talking with her about this yesterday. The look on Charlie's face when he would figure something out, he kind of give you the look. And I'd seen that a million times because I've been in these rooms. Oh, sorry about that. I've been in these rooms with Charlie, fighting these battles and these wars, and we'd figure out the problem that existed and then try to come up with the solution, and then applying the right solution, and going and getting the donors to pay for it and work towards it. And then we build it, and then we do the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and it never stopped. And
you
we'll always remember
that was
Charlie
Charlie's
for that.
thing. It was just, what are we doing today? What are we doing next? What are we doing next? Who's next? It's our turn next. Right back. Charlie Kirk Memorial.
Man, Charlie, I remember when we were starting these out, and
It was like that.
it was like this. It was like your average
First three rows.
It was like your average political meeting where there was like 12 people in a room, and this is awesome.
This, in my personal opinion, was the most over-the-top Trump event that I've ever covered.
This is the number one boots on the ground operation in the country. We're working directly in harmony with the Trump campaign. It's been vetted, it's been cleared, it's been blessed, as you can see there, and we're going to try to win this thing. No guarantees. It's what we do that matters.
Mr. President, I can tell you this room is 100% with you, and we have your back. God bless you. We really do. Thank you.
Jack Posobiec, I'm back here. Starting now hour 2 of the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show here on Real America's Voice. Lock in, Patriots. Lock in. That's how Charlie would want us to be. That's what Charlie would say. He would say, be better. Work harder. What are you doing next? What's the next fight? Take the next hill. Finish the job. Finish the job. Complete the task. Complete the mission. We have the editor of Breitbart, Alex Marlowe, now joining us. Alex, you knew Charlie as well as any of us, obviously. And for you, coming from Breitbart, this is now the second time you've had to go through something like this in this moment. Talk to me a little bit about the legacy of going through the legacy of Andrew, and now we have the legacy of Charlie.
Thanks, Jack. You're doing a wonderful job on this. It's a beautiful tribute so far. I guess I'm unique in this regard, that I was Andrew Breitbart's right-hand man when he passed away at 43. Different circumstances. Certainly wasn't an assassination while he was just trying to debate people on a campus, but a similar situation in a genuinely great man who is here and called to do great things for this country and in this life, and got taken from us. And one thing that was so heartening, that after Andrew passed, people understood the importance of hard work, of determination, of trying to externalize all the messages that Andrew had given us that we'd internalized. And he became the pioneer of citizen journalism. He already was, but not everyone stopped and thought about it until he was taken from us, until that light was extinguished. And that has got to be the exact approach, if not twofold, tenfold, with what Charlie's done. Tyler was touching on something really important that I've been trying to share with people, is that Charlie wasn't just a giant in talk radio and podcasting. He wasn't just a giant in activism, and he may have been the biggest at that, but he was also meeting people where they were. He was on the campuses 100 hours a semester. He was on the platforms that conservatives wouldn't even go on, things like TikTok. He was someone who was reaching people who might not get news from anywhere else. Now, I wish people got news from all over the place, but a lot of the times they were relying on Charlie. He was an international sensation. We at Breitbart today were covering how the international press is reacting to Charlie's assassination. And they have strong opinions. They've thought long and hard about this guy. And he did it all with a smile, with joy. He was always trying to run up that next hill and summit it. That spirit always inspired me as one of his peers and colleagues. And it is just infectious to be around. And my heart breaks for his family, for the whole Turning Point team. But Charlie's message was loud and clear. We need to be those happy warriors. We need to be fearless. We need to be determined. And the fight, sadly, has only just begun.
You know, it's one of those things too, and obviously we're still getting more and more information out about the shooter who is still at large. And I know we have these photos that have come up as well. Alex, can you give us a little bit of that taste? Where do you think we stand with this manhunt?
Well, it's not great. It's not great news. We're getting nothing but bad news. First of all, there were some false hope that we'd caught the guy right away, and then the person got away. And I think that already is a disgrace. A person like Charlie should have protection. I think we need to be very cautious going to these universities going forward. And I think that that's a shame, because we need free speech now more than ever. And they're going to use this as an opportunity, they, the left, who's responsible for this, they're going to use this as a victory, because they're going to see that there will be a chilling of speech, because they hate free speech. They want control. They want authoritarianism. Charlie was an affront to that, and that's why he was targeted. And law enforcement needs to get the job done as soon as humanly possible. And I know our guys are in charge at a federal level. I don't know much about the local law enforcement, the state law enforcement, but it doesn't matter. We need to demand answers. We need to demand accountability right away, and we must be better. I'll tell you, I was just reading a lot about Butler recently and how we still don't have answers from Butler. That's a warning to people. I was on campus with Charlie Kirk over a year ago at UC Davis. They're smashing windows. They're trying to break into the building. Antifa's present. It is very dangerous to be a conservative right now. And I'll tell you, Jack, my audience right now, we feel hunted. We feel hunted down right now. And that is not a good thing.
No, and this one has certainly hit close for my family as well, as I'm sure it has yours.
That's right.
Right back here, Jack Posobiec, along with Alex Marlowe, is the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show. Right back. Jack Posobiec, we're back here, Washington, D.C., the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show, and we're just showing some of these images that are now coming in from all over the country last night. Spontaneous vigils, prayer services, rosaries, people coming out and putting up pictures of Charlie. I don't even know how you get something like that printed so quickly, and the candles going up everywhere. And it's all organic. This is nothing that was directly from the organization. Even the Turning Point's own headquarters, which are showing there, they held a vigil last night that was completely spontaneous and organic, which is exactly what Charlie would have wanted. People becoming activated, people doing things on their own, stepping up, taking agency. That's what he always wanted. And I remember him saying this. He would say, if I can just get people to step up and start doing things, then we win. If we just get people motivated, we will win. And I said it before, Charlie spent his entire life trying to inspire a national turning point. And he has accomplished that. He has now done so. Alex Marlowe, what do you make of this where it really is just a very positive outpouring? We're seeing it from around the world. We're seeing it from members of, across the aisle, liberals, Democrats, people saying, you know what? I think even the New York Times, Ezra Klein, they said Charlie did politics the way it should be done, with moxie, with smarts, with boldness, but never with anger.
Yeah, a pretty remarkable contrast to the initial reactions from the J.B. Pritzkers of the world and the MSNBCs of the world who were suggesting maybe Charlie brought this on himself. The New York Times is very intentional today when they put in his obituary, they called him a provocateur. That word is on purpose. They believe he provoked his own assassination, and that's disgusting. But you did start seeing some people start getting a hold of themselves and start understanding, as Ezra Klein flagged on his own, not the paper itself, and as well as some of these leaders all around the world are saying this is not the humanity we want. And this is a spiritual fight we're in, Jack, and Charlie knew this. He wasn't just an evangelist for conservatism and for a constitution. He was an evangelist for Christ. He was an evangelist for Judeo-Christian values. Charlie stood for that, and people around the world who observe him know that he was as fluent in biblical matters as he was in political matters. And this is the spiritual battle that we need. And people who might not agree with his politics need to understand that Charlie did do things the right way. He did things with debate. He did things with nonviolence. He did things with just trying to meet people where they were and convince them, trying to get them to change their minds if he disagreed, and happily accepting them if they didn't. That's what he stood for. That's who he was. And I think smart people always knew that. Maybe today they're finally starting to admit it.
Yeah, and I remember being on campus with him or being at wherever we were. And he would always say, if you disagree, come right to the front. If you disagree, come right up here. Let's have it out. Let's have that conversation. But you can watch hundreds of hours of videotape of Charlie on these campuses. You'll never once see him raise a hand in anger. He's got conviction. Of course, he's got boldness. Absolutely. When you're debating, you're going to. But he doesn't get angry. He doesn't get physical. There's never been a violent bone in his body. I've never seen that in private. I've never known him to be like that. And it really does just sum it all up. They couldn't debate him, so they did this. And
That's exactly right.
Do you think
yeah.
this will be a turning point against? And we've seen a wave of left-wing violence. We've seen a wave of political violence and anti-Christian violence that's going on just this month. Do you think that it will wind down, or are we going to see more?
I run very pessimistic in this regard, and I think some of those initial reactions we saw from people in the left-wing commentariat make me think that maybe it won't be. And I've seen some of the reactions on Blue Sky and TikTok. But if you look around the world, there are so many bright spots. We at Breitbart, we are tracking today conservatives in Spain, in Latin America, in Brazil, in El Salvador, all over the world. That they're in Argentina. We're seeing even the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, condemning it. So many people are out there saying this is not the way forward for the human race. And it does give me some hope. There is a layer of hope, but there is a deep spiritual problem that we have in this country. There is a yearning for God in so many American households that is absent right now. And it's the absence of God that provided this in people's lives. It's a demonic impulse that we're witnessing day after day in this country. And people need to confront it. They need to confront it, though, on a micro level. It's communities, it's families. And until we fully address that, then I'm going to be in fear that this will continue to some degree or another.
No, and I've seen it all. I've seen every single piece of it. People are sending me stuff like crazy. Phone, blew up yesterday. I was on air when this happened. And I've seen the comments, the TikToks, and there's no other word for it than demonic. The way people are cheering, celebrating a man whose life was cut down in his absolute prime when he was just getting to the top of the mountain. I think he was just there, and he had other mountains yet to climb, and we all knew that he did. And he wanted us to be along there with him. And these monsters want to celebrate it, and you see it all across Blue Sky. You see it across TikTok. You can find tweet after tweet. Sort of the big names have kind of realized they have to be careful now. But I've said this for a year now at this point, that there will be more Mangionis. And the cult of Luigi, the fandom of Luigi was there because now that they have lost political power, they are now choosing physical, kinetic power. And it was Chairman Mao himself who said political power grows from the barrel of a gun. Alex, I know you got to run. And where can people go to follow and everything you guys are putting up?
The Alex Marlowe Show. I'll have a long tribute to Charlie today on my podcast, and I can't thank you enough, Jack, for having me and including me in this, and Real America's Voice, wonderful job over there. And we're going to honor Charlie at Breitbart News all day, every day. We're putting up dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces of content about Charlie. He got his start writing for us. It's something we're deeply proud of, and will always be a part of that in history. Charlie was my friend. I spoke with him virtually every day. I was on his program once a week. He was a good man, and people need to understand that. If you're motivated to get involved right now, know that he wasn't just a conservative warrior. He was a good person, a genuinely good person. He was that guy.
Absolutely was, Alex. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being a part of this. President Trump has just put out a new statement. He's been talking to reporters. He brought up Charlie. I want to play that now.
You don't replace Joe. No, but not as well as I do. He was a unique man, but do the best we can.
Anything on the investigation or anything on the latest that you've heard from the FBI or Cash Patel?
No, they've reported to me so far. Pretty much what you're seeing in the news is what it is. They have a virtual manhunt out there, so we'll see what happens. We hope we get them.
Sir, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Press, let's go.
All right, that's President Trump, a virtual manhunt. I hope we get him. I want to go now to Harrison Field's press team of the White House. Harrison, thank you so much for joining us and being here today.
It's good to be here, Jack. I wish it was better circumstances, but it's good to see you.
Absolutely. Can you tell us just, beyond the politics of this, Charlie had so many friends in the White House. Can you tell me what the mood is like in there, or how it's been in the last 12 hours or so?
Well, I recently departed, so I'm actually back in the private sector, but I've been talking to my friends back at the White House. They're just all devastated. there are no words, right? And first and foremost, our prayers, our thoughts, everything in our bodies is going towards Erica and the kids. We can't fathom it. I am a young father myself, recently married, kind of following that Charlie Kirk motto, get married, have babies. This is what it's all about. You're at a loss for words. There is just no making sense of the unsensible tragedy that took our friend's life. And even if you didn't get to know him, you felt like you did know him. I was talking to friends from all over the country, and they're at a loss. They don't understand how something like this could happen. They got my friends engaged in politics. After years of me trying to convince people to become conservatives, all they needed was one Charlie Kirk video, and here they were voting for the president. That's the type of impact that he had. And his legacy will be a lot of things, but one thing, and I know you guys have been talking about it, his legacy as a man of faith, as a Christian, as a lover of Jesus will be of paramount importance. I mean, this is a man that when he saw my pin, it's right here on my lapel right here. It has a cross over the United States flag. He pointed it out to me. He noticed it. And I joked with him. I said, it's my Christian nationalist pin. And he got a chuckle out of it because we cannot be afraid to be Christians in this country. And just minutes before he passed, we knew that he was professing his faith once again. And I heard Kayleigh McEnany mention this quote, and I think it's beautiful. It's not about left or right. Just remember above and up. And we know that our brother Charlie is in the arms of Jesus Christ and the angels up there. And as a Christian, that gives you some level of comfort when you're just grasping for something to make sense of it all.
No, and martyrs absolutely go straight in. Harrison, we got about a minute here until the break, but it's something that Charlie always led with, and he was so unapologetic about his faith. And I think that's something that to Gen Z really, really was able to connect with them at a time when so many people are asking what's going on. It felt like, through COVID, everything was collapsing. And then here comes Charlie. It's God, it's the Bible, it's Jesus, and he's there serving it to you right on campus.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. We have a loneliness epidemic between our younger population. Charlie was able to influence them in a way to introduce them to God. With God in your life, you can't be lonely. You are so fulsome and wholesome in your life. So he's been able to evangelize in many ways to people. You became a Christian and a conservative just from listening to him. That's the type of impact he has. You look throughout history, there's not many people that have been able to do that. You look at the Graham family, you look at people like, MLK or, other prominent people in our country that have had such a platform. The president of the United States, such a palpable platform, one that doesn't die with them, but really lives on. But the reality is, again, as Christians, we know that he's very much alive in heaven. A place where he prayed and wished and knew he probably would end up one day. By no means did we think it would be at 31 years young. But again, our hearts and our thoughts and prayers are with his family right now.
Absolutely. Harrison Fields, thank you so much for joining us today. And obviously, we hope that Erica and the family are feeling those prayers right now. Jack Posobiec coming back. Charlie Kirk Memorial Show here, Real America's Voice. Jack Posobiec now here live on the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show. What you're looking at is live. This is not pre-recorded. This is not pre-taped. This is a live shot, a camera that we have up at the Turning Point USA headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, where a makeshift memorial has been set up, where people are just coming in. These aren't people who work for TPUSA. These are some of the people who work there have come out, but this is really just people coming by, well-wishers, fans, friends in many cases. Charlie, of course, lived in Phoenix. His family still lives in the Phoenix area in Scottsdale, and people are just coming by, watching this in real time as people are putting this memorial together for Charlie at the work that he did and the campus of Turning Point USA. I've visited many times. I've been there many times, been there with Charlie many times. And It's his life's work. You are looking physically at these buildings at Charlie's life's work. They would not exist without Charlie Kirk. Turning Point USA would not exist without Charlie Kirk. Without Turning Point Action, who knows? Maybe you don't have a President Donald Trump, a Vice President J.D. Vance, and the Vice President had put up an incredible 1,000-word eulogy to Charlie last night, and you could tell, you could just tell from the way it was written that J.D. wrote it himself, that he had been so close with Charlie all the way back to 2017. And so what we are also told right now is that the Vice President Vance will be, of course, he was not at the 9/11 memorial because he is on his way. He's en route to Salt Lake City, where he can be with Erica and the family as they work through the arrangements and the preparations for saying goodbye to Charlie. And that's something that we're all going through. It's something we'll all have to go through for everyone in our life, saying goodbye. And last night, FoxNews.com reached out to me and asked if I would like to write something for Charlie that they would publish on their opinion side. And so I did. And that is up now. You guys can go read it. Charlie Kirk died as he lived, bold, unashamed, and anchored in faith. And you can go check it out. I said, on September 10th, America lost a warrior and a family lost a father. Charlie Kirk was my brother. He was a man who stood tall with his feet firmly planted and a microphone in his hand. And he was taken from us at Utah Valley University while proclaiming truth. He did not flinch. He did not waver. He did not run. He died as he lived, bold, steadfast, and unashamed of the gospel and the truth. When America needed a hero, God sent us Charlie Kirk. And there's something about Charlie that no matter how big Charlie got, and I was with him and I knew him as he went from being well-known to an international celebrity. And it didn't matter because he was always kind. He was always generous to everyone, super generous with his time. And he could make a nobody feel like a somebody because he would listen to every single person, whether it was an event or just on the street, who wanted to talk to him.
Man, Charlie, I remember when we were starting these out, and
It was that, like that.
you know, it was like this. It was like your average
First three rows.
It was like your average political meeting where there's like 12 people in a room, and this is awesome.
This, in my personal opinion, was the most over-the-top Trump event that I've ever covered.
This is the #1 boots on the ground operation in the country. We're working directly in harmony with the Trump campaign. It's been vetted, it's been cleared, it's been blessed, as you can see there, and we're going to try to win this thing. No guarantees. It's what we do that matters.
Mr. President, I can tell you this room is 100% with you, and we have your back. God bless you. We really do. Thank you.
Jack Sobick, here we are back. We're looking at a live shot, Turning Point USA headquarters, Phoenix, Arizona, where it's so incredible that this organic, that's live, by the way, it's live footage, organic, live tributes and memorials to a great man, a great fighter, great father, great husband, and a great friend. Are all going on right now because it's times like these that people turn to prayer. And that's what Charlie Kirk would have wanted. I know that's what Charlie would ask you to do. He would ask you to pray, and then he would ask you to get in the fight, get activated, because it's your turn next. And there's someone I know who's been in this fight for a long time and continues to fight and serve this country at the highest levels, but beyond all that, a great friend of Charlie Kirk's. Darren Beatty joins us now from the U.S. State Department. Darren.
Hi, Jack.
I don't even know where to start with any of this, but tell us what your thoughts are. Tell us where you're at today.
Well, as you know, we had a chance to see each other not too long ago, and we're discussing, oh, well, come on and do Charlie's show, do the show here. And so ordinarily, it would be a situation where I'd say, it's so great to be back, but it's really the circumstances that occasion my appearance here are terrible. Just like everyone else in the country, I'm really heartbroken. There's no words to really capture the magnitude of what happened and the magnitude of the loss. There's one sense in which, as the president said, Charlie, among his other attributes, was a man of fearlessness, and that kind of courage is contagious and will live beyond him as one of the many aspects of his legacy. But there's another sense in which I think he's just irreplaceable. He is probably, I would say without question, the best youth political organizer in America's history. And I think people who don't understand sort of the history of how all this developed may not understand the magnitude of what he accomplished. That's just one of the things, but to create what he created, have these political events with young people engaged, which are more than political events, like with Trump's rallies, these were rock concerts, and he was a rock star. And that's something that so many people desperately wanted to achieve for so long and couldn't do it. And it took someone of unique character, unique capabilities like Charlie. And so, there are just a handful of people in the world who are not replaceable, and he was one of them.
And when we look across this at the situation, how many times did I or you come on the show with Charlie and we talked about this violence that had started creeping up in our society, probably with the first Trump campaign and throughout the first Trump administration, which you were serving in, leading up, of course, to Butler, and now this. And in a way, Charlie saw it coming, and he knew going out there the threat that he was under. I talked to him about it. Everyone talked to him about it. And he did it anyway. He did it anyway, and yet we are in this situation, Darren, in our country where we're in very dire straits because there are so many people who refuse to condemn it. There are so many people who celebrate it. And I really hope that better angels of our nature can prevail in this country, but I worry that perhaps someone else wants to be the next Luigi or whoever this person is. I believe the FBI, by the way, I'll just announce because it is just breaking, that the FBI has two pieces of information. The FBI has announced a $100,000 reward for information regarding the shooter. It's number one. Number two, this was something that I had actually heard about last night, but I wasn't able to say it publicly yet, and that J.D. Vance will meet with Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica, and their 2 children in Salt Lake City today. And following that, J.D. is going to be giving Charlie one last ride on Air Force Two, and he will be flying him back to Arizona, to his home state. So that's the updates that we have today. Darren, where do we go at a time like this?
It's simply a tragedy, and I think it'll take a long time for us to recover as a country if we can at all. I think right now, just want to focus on love and positivity, which, Charlie was a warrior. He was also a happy warrior. He was somebody full of love for his fellow citizens, for his country. And I think that's really part of the legacy that we should remember today. But yeah, I think in time, I trust, of course, the president and the appropriate authorities to deal with this in the manner in which it is appropriate.
No, I think that's right. And of course, we've heard President Trump and others. Darren, you've spoken out so forcefully in the past and are now working your capacity regarding the ideas of censorship, the ideas of silencing speech. Isn't political assassination just the final step of censorship? Isn't that entirely the point?
Yes, I mean it's the ultimate silencing, but it doesn't achieve its intended effect because it really just it will make us all louder, more forceful, more committed to the cause that Charlie fought for so bravely and so effectively. And yeah, I think it's appropriate to say, don't want to get into too much of the personal history, but the first time I really had the chance to engage with Charlie was a very long time ago when I was a speechwriter for President Trump, and we're doing an event with him, and it was an event on free speech in college campuses. This was all the way back in 2018. And he'd been around for a while since then. So it's just at such a young age to achieve so much and be so committed to all of these critical fights for our nation's history is really just a remarkable thing. And, sure it's been pointed out, but there's something appropriate, but also very poignant and adds to the tragedy is that he's wearing a shirt called Freedom when his life was taken away. And, he was for freedom to the very end.
That's exactly right. Charlie Kirk was a martyr of many causes, interlinked causes, but first and foremost, freedom of speech, the bedrock upon which the American experiment was built.
Right.
The idea that we have this freedom and we will use this freedom. And Charlie would want us to continue using this freedom. And that's why we're doing the show. And that's why when I reached out to them last night and I said, if you guys need any help, let me know. And they said they want to keep doing the show because that's what Charlie would have wanted. Because Charlie, and by the way, Charlie would, I know for a fact that Charlie would be saying, Jack, don't talk about me the whole time. Talk about what's going on. Talk about the news. Get into things. What's happening. And Charlie used to. He would take Saturdays off, and he would use Saturdays to sort of stand still and be there with his family. And so I only think it's appropriate that we take one day and stand still for Charlie. Final minute to you, Darren Beattie.
Amen to that. And I can only reiterate, this was an irreplaceable individual a great family man. Our hearts go out to his family. Obviously, a profound loss for the family, but also a profound loss for us, for the movement, for the country. And the only consolation we can take is that the courage and the fight and the legacy will live on. So I very much commend you for doing this today, Jack, because I know it's not easy.
What can I say, Darren? We know Charlie would do it for us. So,
amen.
It's rough, but when you stand with the man, you stand with him. God bless Darren Beatty. Godspeed to you as well. Jack Posobiec, we're here, Charlie Kirk Memorial. All right, folks, Jack Posobiec here. Charlie Kirk on assignment. On assignment from the King right now. And we are hosting a memorial to him. The live shot you're looking at, and if you're listening, these are images of people now gathering. It looks like dozens of people. It's actually growing quite large now. Outside of Turning Point USA headquarters there in Phoenix, Arizona, where people are bringing balloons, candles, pictures of Charlie. Actually, it looks like people are gathering in prayer. They're holding their heads, bowing their heads. This is just incredible moving. It's completely organic. These are happening all over the country today, and it's just... It means so much to know how beloved Charlie was to this country. What a hero that he was and is. Such an icon. And, you know, having been along for the ride, to see how he went from where he started to where he is now, or to have achieved this level of success and become this beloved figure, it's impossible, but it just, I never saw him that way, because to me he's just my buddy. To me he's my friend, and I'm always just kind of wondering what's the next fight, Charlie? Where are we going next? What's the next hill we're going to take? Where are we going to plant the next flag? And so today we're taking a day to step back from all of that. And we're talking to some of Charlie's closest friends and associates all about the man Charlie was, the way that he lived, and the reason that he stood head and shoulders above all of us. Mike Benz joins us now. Mike, I mean, it's horrific that we have to be here in such circumstances. But in a way, for me, and I think for a lot of us, we weren't surprised, because we saw the trajectory of the way our country was going. And it was only a matter of time before another act of senseless, hate-filled violence came after one of us. And of course, they went after Charlie.
Yeah.
And Mike, do you think that this is going to turn the temperature up? Is it going to turn it down? What's your sense?
I don't know. I think it has to be. You can't forget this. That was the most graphic, horrifying video I or anyone I could ever imagine could see in their life. It was in broad daylight. Thousands of people watching, mid-sentence. Shot in the jugular vein. And this was our child prodigy. We would not be here without Charlie. I would not be here without Charlie on so many levels. Charlie was our bridge to the young. Charlie made it okay to believe in this for people whose minds were growing and developing. When I was in college, I was afraid to be friends with anybody who considered themselves conservative. I hid away from the label because there was no institution. There was college Republicans, which sucked and nobody wanted to be a part of. And what he did with Turning Point is he built really the first MAGA institution, and probably the most important one, the pipeline of people, of networks, of community, of solidarity. And I can't do something like that. I used to joke with people about when people would say, "Oh, Benz, you work so hard," and I would say, "Well, there's someone who works harder than me, actually. How would you like to be Charlie Kirk? He has to do all of this, and then he has to manage teams of thousands of people. He has to bridge divides from all of the different splintered factions of MAGA so that they have one unified vision. He has to be the peacemaker, the diplomat, the communicator, the long-term strategic planner. Every room he walked in, he looked like he would be president one day. You see him next to presidents, he looks like he's going to be president. And all of this responsibility was on the shoulders of a kid. He was 17 years old, 16 years old when he started all this. Started Turning Point at 18 years old? And all of that weight and responsibility. And he never lost. I never saw him lose a debate. I never saw him lose his composure. He had a unique and probably the perfect skill set for something that is very, very rare in somebody under 60, let alone somebody in this movement, which is in many ways motivated by passion and to some extent the kind of chaos of newness and reform. But Charlie was the steady hand. He never lost his cool, even in that moment. It's completely surreal.
Mike, I couldn't agree more, and I'm as shaken up about this as anybody. And I don't even think I slept last night, honestly. And been up with my wife, and she barely slept. And we're just praying, talking, and I know, though, that because I can hear Charlie's voice in my ear, he would say, keep fighting. Keep up the fight. Keep going. Finish the mission. Complete the task. Work harder. He'd actually, he'd be saying, what do you think? You guys think you get a day off? No, we don't take days off. No, we don't. I want to show very quickly, since we are covering the breaking news, we do have a new image that's been released by the FBI. And so that's the original image right there. And then let's show the new image that's been released, this clearer image that is zoomed in, the tighter, clearer image. If we don't have it, we don't have it. But those are the images that were released earlier. We're trying to get a sense of this right now. Okay, here's the new image that's been released. Mike, as you look at the situation, what do you make of the fact that the shooter is still at large?
Puzzled. I know that this is the most wanted person on earth. I have faith in Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi to make sure this killer is brought to justice. And I want the slowest, most painful, most gruesome, most public execution of this man possible. I want a video.
We certainly have to look. I'm emotionally, I know exactly where you're coming from, and Obviously, cross our T's, dot our I's, but look, I get it. Something has to give. A line was crossed yesterday that we can't go back from. We can't go back from the... We can never turn back into the America that we were before we lost Charlie Kirk. But we can still move forward to become something good, because that's what Charlie stood for. But make no mistake, we were robbed yesterday. Erica Kirk was robbed yesterday. Charlie's children were robbed yesterday. And there is now a debt. There is a debt that must be paid. And it will be. But as for Charlie's kids, I'm going to make sure that they knew who their father was. Because I'm going to make sure to tell them myself. I'm going to tell them who Charlie was.
We are heading on campus here momentarily at the University of South Florida, throwing it down with the students. It's going to be a lot of fun. We are excited to continue this cultural movement that we have started at Turning Point USA. More high school chapters, more college chapters, and disagreement is not just welcome, it is invited. We want to have those tough conversations. That's what it's all about.
Every day, the American people demand certain accomplishments and victories.
Disagreement is what keeps a movement alive, keeps a movement fun.
Here in this country, we are a country of flourishing. We're a country of risk-taking. We're a country of building. We will achieve American greatness, and we are just getting started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Today's edition, Human Events Daily. We are live in Washington, D.C. Today is September 11th, 2025, Anno Domini. And even though this is Human Events Daily, this is actually functioning as the third hour of the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show, which we've been holding the fort down for Charlie while he's on assignment with God. And we have this incredible live shot I want to pull up right here for you right now outside of TPUSA headquarters, where one of these makeshift, organic, spontaneous vigils has been erected for Charlie right outside the headquarters there, where well-wishers, people are coming to pray, people are gathering. And that's who Charlie was. He was a gatherer of people. Or as the gospel says, fisher of men. What does our Lord say? He says, "Come with me, and I will make you a fisher of men." And that's exactly what he did with Charlie. The Lord made Charlie a fisher of men. And now he has another task for him. We can't understand it, and we won't understand it. You don't get answers this side of perdition, because that's not how it works. But what I do know is that God sent Charlie Kirk to America when America needed a Charlie Kirk. And it's been the finest honor of my life to stand shoulder to shoulder with a man like that and to fight for this country, to fight for our Lord, to stand in the breach. And if Charlie was willing to do that, And we need to be willing to do that for him and to continue his work and continue his mission, to carry the torch, to honor the legacy. Turning Point USA was never about Charlie Kirk. Turning Point Action was never about Charlie Kirk. He was the brains behind it, the energy, the drive, but it was never about himself. It was about you. It was about the people. It was about students. It was about ideas. It was about values, eternal values, timeless values, classic values, the American way. And he worked his whole life, he dedicated his entire life, and he gave his life. Gave his life to achieving that turning point in America. That's what he was always fighting for. And he has done it. He has absolutely done it. I'm told we have another one of Charlie's and my close friends now joining us, Raheem Kassam from the National Pulse. Raheem, we've got about 2 minutes left in the break, till the break, but I'll hold you over. You just come back to the United States. I can't imagine that you thought you'd be arriving with news like this.
Yeah, Jack, and what I want to say as well, firstly, for the audience is, for people like Jack, for people like Tyler, for people like Andrew, who are not just colleagues of Charlie's, but really, really close friends, I would just want to express, my deepest condolences to you guys. There's no way to, I've lost a lot of friends in recent years. There's no way to comfort and console, especially with an incident as horrific as this. But landing back in the United States and having Wi-Fi on the plane and sort of seeing it all take place and feeling helpless to do anything. And, I knew Charlie and just disbelief, right? I was texting with a friend of mine, a reporter, a friend of mine, while it was all happening, while, in that fog of war moments immediately after. And I just said, can you believe it? And he said, no. And then he replied, yes, because that's where we are. And people like you and I, we talk about this all the time, right? We talk about our safety. We talk about going to these events. People don't realize just how much it comes up, how often it comes up. Now I hope people won't forget, just how much, somebody like Charlie puts themselves out there for the country, for his family, for his faith every single day. Just how much stress and risk and concern and worry and everything that there is. And it's very, very hard to talk about it.
No, that's exactly right. And I think it's been a rough night for America. It's been a rough night for all of us who knew Charlie, who were close to Charlie. Raheem, tell us, you always have such a good way of putting things. I've got right here on my desk one of the ubiquitous Turning Point USA MAGA hats that Charlie signed. And it's here, and it's a testament to the legacy of this man, that he would go on these campuses and draw out thousands of people, students. And Raheem, it wasn't always like that on college campus. It certainly wasn't when Charlie started, or when either of us got started. Tell us about this incredible effect that he achieved.
Yeah, when I first met Charlie, I think it was over at the old Trump Hotel in DC, and you try and get a measure of a person as quickly as possible. And I thought to myself, is this just your sort of run-of-the-mill politico trying to carve a niche out for themselves in Washington DC, perhaps run for a seat somewhere, and then sell out their principles? And Charlie couldn't have been the more polar opposite of that, right? You could sort of tell that immediately. Everything he did was with drive and with passion and with love and with charm and with help and with respect and with faith and with heart and with principle and with courage. And I pride myself on having words, knowing the best words. But I can't, there aren't any enough to describe, when you were feeling, when I would feel lazy or down and I was doing Charlie's show, in the breaks, he'd just be like, yeah. So anyway, so we're going to do this. Let's talk about that. And let's talk about how we get there. There was none of this waste of time, waste of life, kvetching at things and wringing your hands over stuff. He was just such a remarkable doer. You know what? The irony of ironies, he understood the finitude of the time we all have, and he put every second to use in a way that frankly embarrasses me and probably embarrasses us all. To say he'll be missed is just a heinous understatement. Jack, it really truly is. I don't go in for hyperbole, you know that. I'm a very realistic person, but it really truly is one of the worst things that anybody could ever told me would happen has happened.
It is, and it is absolutely the worst. And yet, I suppose I see there's two tracks right now that I see happening. I see the vast majority of people are choosing to embrace the love and the light that Charlie Kirk stood for. He was always the one who was always looking to find a positive edge, a way to put a positive spin on no matter what happened. He was endlessly optimistic, and yet, and you have seen this outpouring across the aisle and really across the world. International leaders singing his praises, calling out political violence, and yet, in the initial wake of this, we also saw horrific comments about Charlie being made from major cable networks, major figures, and although that has been tamped down on very quickly, we still see this across much of certain parts of social media, Blue Sky, TikTok, where people are cheering, people are celebrating. What are we to make of this?
Right, I mean, you wrote the book on this narrative and the way these people behave, and there's no other way to describe it. These are cockroaches of life. These are the scum of the earth, and people have been texting me the last 24 hours, just be careful when you're out there, when you're doing things, and I just I'm not going to worry about these cockroaches. Quite frankly, I'm going to keep doing what Charlie would have wanted us to do, which is keep working for the right cause. And I'm flying out tomorrow to Indiana with Senator Jim Banks and Alex Brusewitz, and we're doing an event out there. And this, you're not going to stop us. You're not going to put fear into us. You're not going to cow us. We're not afraid. I've lived with this for 20 years now. It's you put your hat into this ring. These are the stakes. You asked about college campuses, and I didn't get to it because I was very publicly grieving. But nobody had a bigger impact. Nobody had a bigger impact on America's youth. This is what this was about, right? This was about jealousy. This was about envy. Charlie Kirk was targeted and assassinated because he wanted to keep deranged men out of his daughter's bathroom. He was targeted because he believed in Jesus Christ. He was targeted because he believed in freedom and free speech and free expression. He was targeted because he believed in the Constitution. He was targeted because he believed in the right to life. He was targeted because he believed in doing the right thing. And we will never stop doing the right thing. You can come for all of us, but this movement is bigger than any single one of us. And Charlie would be the first one to say so. Now we all, there should be monuments going up to Charlie Kirk all across the country over the next few months. That's what I will say. But I think right now we all have to be monuments to Charlie Kirk.
I actually got a message from he hasn't said it publicly yet, but so I won't name names, but someone most people know, and he thinks that perhaps a national park is in order, and time it with the 250th celebration of America. Utah, perhaps Utah or Arizona, wherever is most appropriate. Obviously, work with the family on all of this, but I think that's something that would just be an incredible legacy because not everybody knew this about Charlie, but he loved the outdoors. He loved being outside. He loved hiking. It's one of the things that he loved about Arizona. That's why he made it his home. He's not a native-born son of Arizona, but it's something that he just loved so much. Loved hiking Utah as well, where he met his destiny. And there's something about naming a national park that I think is just it's so eternal. It's so eternal. And it's certainly something I'd love to see, and obviously in conjunction with the family and their wishes, that I think it would certainly be appropriate, and many of these things are appropriate. But Raheem, before we go down that road, we still have to deal with the matter at hand. That unfortunately we do still have a developing news situation where, at the same time that all these vigils are taking place, this shooter is still at large. And yet the vigils, actually, let me say this for a second. These vigils are taking place even though the shooter is still at large. Even though they know that there is a killer at large who shot Charlie Kirk, these people are not being cowed. They're not being afraid. They're standing up. They're being bold. They're going out and they're gathering in Charlie's name, despite the fact that the shooter is still at large. I'm sorry, Raheem.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And to come back on another point, they're building a ballroom in the White House, and it will need a forever name. And they named the press briefing room after James Brady, who was shot in Reagan's Secret Service detail, and he went on to advocate for gun control. And I think to bring a semblance of balance, if you're not going to rename the Brady press briefing room, then have the Charlie Kirk ballroom on the White House grounds. I think for a man who gave so much to his country, and listen, I was at the Reform Party conference, Nigel Farage's party last week in England, and I just can't tell you the number of people that came up to me, young people who came up to me and said, "Oh, Raheem, I think it's great. I love Real America's Voice and War Room, but what I really love is Charlie Kirk." It's always the sentence always sort
That's the same way for me.
We
it's
like
the exact same way.
and everything you do, but what we really love is Charlie Kirk, and I think that's because I'll be very honest about it. As a more sober figure, Charlie was always more action oriented. He's always had more energy. He always had more drive. He always had more purpose. He was always giving you things to do and finding places for people. Often political movements and political friendships and groups and whatever can be quite exclusionary. He was always about bringing people in. I can't tell you the number of times where I picked a particularly unpopular position, even on the political right, and Charlie had my back. And he was always for making sure we could find room for people in the movement and find things for them to do. Never, "Hey, sorry, we don't need your help," or "Hey, we're full." It was, "No, yes, more shoulders to the wheel. You get over here, do this thing. What are you good at? Let's put you to work over here." And again, there was never a wasted moment. It always left me awestruck and frankly quite envious that he had those energy levels and he had that ability, because if we had gosh, just a few more, there would be no problem that we couldn't solve. But we had just one, and he was taken from us. So we have to. And I know that the Turning Point people and the people that you have working there, and the people, and especially I want to say this, right? And I don't work for Turning Point. Doesn't mean anything to me to say this. I don't want people to go away thinking like, "Oh, Raheem's fundraising off this." No, I want you to support Turning Point, Charlie's group, Charlie's family, and help them grow and help train more, because we need more now. We especially need more now. So if you're looking for something to do in this moment, go and support Charlie's endeavors, his causes, his groups, his people, because that is what the right thing to do is in this moment, is to lift these people up.
And it's what Charlie would have wanted. And his events, AmFest, which was his baby, America Fest, it's got to be a tribute. It's just got to be, again, barring in consultation with the family, but it's got to be the biggest tribute to Charlie Kirk that this country has ever seen, and the biggest event worth everyone. I just want everyone to be there to see that we will not be scared. We will not be cowed. We're not going to put our heads in the sand. Of course, we have J.D. Vance, Air Force Two, now on its way over, pick up Charlie and give him one last ride. And, Raheem, it's something you mentioned about young people. I'm getting text messages from people who have children who are 11, 12, 13, 14, not even voting age. And people telling me that my son cried himself to sleep last night. This is a generational moment, something that I don't even think that we, you and I being a little bit of the older cohort here, at least in terms of this, I don't even think we realize the deep affection that this generation had for Charlie. I don't even know who to compare it to. I can't even think. I've been trying to rack my mind to compare it to someone, but he really was an icon for the youth.
Yeah, I mean, just undoubtedly, the sheer number, and the fact that it resonates all across the world. We've had, unfortunately, failed attempts to honor him in the European Parliament. They wouldn't allow for it because they're scumbags. But in the British Parliament today, with Nigel Farage, tributes pouring in from obviously all around the world, from Brazil and from El Salvador and from Korea, and you name it, there isn't a single place really on God's green earth that has been untouched. And it's wild when you think about it, because number one, he was so young, and number two, the political left, his philosophical enemies, put so much work into trying to tamp down on his activity and to demonize him and to discredit him and to mock and humiliate him. And it was just, Jack, it was just a couple of weeks ago when he was on South Park, and we were all sort of saying, wow, I mean, that's the biggest of the big leagues that you could possibly get.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say this, by the way, that I know that I've seen this news that they have pulled the episode, but I'm just going to say it, haven't talked to him. Charlie liked the episode. He liked what they did. He liked the way they portrayed him. He had a good laugh about it. That's how he was. I don't know. I mean, I can understand it's their decision, but I just know that that's the way Charlie responded to it, because we talked about it and he thought it was funny. Raheem, we've got to let you go because we do have to take a break, and we have some folks coming up. Where can people go to follow you? And obviously you've got a lot of reporting coming out.
Yeah, look, as I say, Jack, today, I really don't want anybody following me or anything like that. I want you all to take this moment in the break to go to Turning Point and say a prayer, especially for Charlie's family, especially for the people around him, and donate to that group so they can rebuild from what is, a horrific loss. And Jack, you as well, my number. Anything you guys need in this time, I'm here for you.
God bless, Raheem. Thank you so much. We'll be right back. Jack Posobiec, Charlie Kirk Memorial Show.
Welcome to America Fest, everybody. Thank you, everybody. The real thank you is the Turning Point team that worked their tail off this last year. That's who you should be applauding. By the way, I like this touch. Look at all these students that we have at Turning Point. You look at this. I like that. They helped win the election, everybody. Young people moved by 30 points this election cycle. I'll tell you what. The kids are all right. Welcome, everybody. It feels good.
Jack Posobiec, we're back live. We're here. You're looking at a live shot of Turning Point headquarters, where the memorial for Charlie Kirk, one of the many memorials, is now up. And we have this live shot up of people, and they just haven't stopped coming all day. They haven't stopped coming all day. I've been watching this shot for 3 hours now. I think some of these people haven't left for that entire time. wanted to bring on our next guest, special guest. Also, he's in Washington, D.C., along with myself, the Associate Deputy Attorney General, Ed Martin. Ed, how are you?
Well, Jack, I'm okay. It's always good to see you. You're an old friend. It gives me some comfort, but I know your heart is broken and mine is, and it's I'm in one of those moments for your listeners that are younger that maybe didn't live through 9/11 or other things. You just almost there's an unreal feel to it, right? It doesn't feels like you shake your head and wake up and it was a dream. And that part of it is just it's terrible. So it's always good to see you. It's always good to talk to and be with listeners, and especially Charlie's great audience. It's always special, but it's a haunting day. It's really tough.
You know, Ed, I was just thinking about when we were putting the call out to see who we get together for this memorial show, and every single person we reached out to said yes, and then other people heard about it and wanted to get on and be a part of it. And then when your name came up, and I said, it just clicked, and I said, wait a minute, and it's something I haven't thought about in years, but it was at an event with Ed Martin, an Eagle Forum event. I don't even know how many years ago now that I met Charlie, and out there in St. Louis. And I remember being there, and our first son had just been born. He was only a couple of months old, and Tanya was there. And I remember you coming to me and saying, hey, Jack, I know you have a car here. Would you mind picking somebody up at the airport? And I said, who is it, Ed? And he wanted to use me as a gopher. And I said, who is it? And you said, well, it's this guy, Charliekirk. He's coming in, and he was still flying commercial and still just kind of riding coach, And he says, and I said, oh yeah, I think I follow that guy on Twitter. Let me go pick him up. And that's where I met Charlie.
Yeah. Well, a couple things on that. One is, as you know, we all met Charliekirk, and then in many ways that we all acknowledge, he sort of outshined us all, outgrew us all. I mean, one of the really funny things is when you have somebody who's so capable and talented and, 25 years younger than me, and I learned from him, and so he was extraordinary. I will give a little hat tip. Phyllis Schlafly, who founded Eagle Forum and was my mentor, she was really good at bringing people together. And one of the things that happened with Charlie is we could get together, and you and others, that was an extraordinary time. And we all grew together, and we kind of grew up, but that was awesome. And Phyllis was great at that. But that's the thing I've been thinking a lot about, Jack, is we got to watch Charlie grow over these years. And it was something that was so inspiring, meaning when he was 18 and started Turning Point, and for maybe till he was 23 or 4, he was like a young buck, and he was energetic, and he was doing lots of things, and he had a sort of feel of him that was like contagious. Everyone wanted to kind of get near him, but you were like, this guy's almost like a college kid. And then he grew, and then he was a builder of an organization. And then suddenly he was this mature leader. I think his wife played a role, and then having kids played a role. And by the time, I can't even say it, by the time he's gone, he was this extraordinary presence as a builder, as a charismatic person, but as a father, as a Christian, and as a communicator. And to see that, he lived his life. We all saw it, and most of us don't succeed like he did. We kind of go in fits and starts. You have some things that go well and some things that don't. He had this kind of gradual success that has been extraordinary to see. And as he got bigger and better, more successful, what he somehow did was he really honed in on other people. I was at the White House today, and I had someone tell me, who was not a big name or anything, not somebody you know or anybody you know, and she said he was so good at making you feel special. And I have had a privilege of knowing John Paul II and Mother Teresa and the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and all these. One of the gifts that people have that are truly special is that they make the other person feel valued. And when you heard Charlie in some of the clips talking about everyone's made in the image and likeness of God, if you really believe that, then sunsets and mountains are extraordinary, a part of God's creation, but any person, and you see this on Charlie with these crazy lefties that would talk to him. He just loved it. He loved people. He loved those people, and that shined through him. And it's extraordinary to realize. And I'm rambling because I can't stand it, Jack. But it's a wonderful thing to have had Charlie Kirk in our lives, and it's a tribute to America that that a Charlie Kirk is created. I mean, it's an extraordinary gift.
Amen. Ed Martin, God bless to you. God bless to everyone at the White House and everyone for everything that they're doing for Charlie's memory and for the family. Thank you, Ed, for joining us.
God bless you.
All right, folks, right back. Jack Posobiec. Jack Posobiec, we are back live here, the Charlie Kirk Memorial Show. You're looking at live shot there at Turning Point USA headquarters. And we've been bringing on all the posse here on the show today, and we finally tracked down the elusive Blake Neff. Blake is joining us now here on the program, and Blake actually was not only there in Salt Lake City, but was there on the campus yesterday when all this happened. Blake, first of all, man, how are you?
I mean, given the totality of everything that's going on, I'm doing about as well as I can. It's awful. I'm very numb about everything. But you know what Charlie would want us to do. He would want us to suit up, soldier on, and that's what we all intend to do.
Yeah, I mean, talking to just everybody last night, and you and I spoke briefly, and going around the horn. It's the one thing that nobody has any question of is what Charlie would want us to do. He would just say, "Keep going." He would keep going, just keep going. Here you go. Here's the baton. It's yours now. Keep going. That's who he was. He didn't, even people talk about his Saturday off. And he didn't even really take the day off. He's out hiking. He's out, working on something else.
It was the most aggressive day off possible. It is this is the family day, all in on this. This is not a passive day off. It's not, it was part of the totality of who was Charlie Kirk, that he was 100% on the mission at all times. And sometimes that mission was saving America, and sometimes that mission was Charlie Kirk's family. And he was 100% for both of those things all the way to the end.
So, I mean, Blake, look, you were there yesterday. Obviously, I'm sure there's some sensitive stuff that I don't want to get into until the appropriate time. But, what was it? I mean, you go there, you've been to, how many of Charlie's campus events what was it like? Did you sense that something was off before the gunshot rang out? Kind of paint the picture for us.
I don't want to lead too much into it, but after it happened, I talked to some other members of the team, and several of us did say we experienced some sort of unsettling feeling. I think for me, it was that it was in this amphitheater, which really emphasized the size of the crowd, but also it emphasized, the buildings in the background. And actually, for the first few minutes, before Charlie walked out, I remember I was scanning, I was just looking around idly, where would someone be if something happened? And I didn't think too much of it. I stopped, by the time Charlie came out, but I immediately thought back to that as soon as it happened. When it did, I would say I was about 10 feet to Charlie's left when it happened. And it was just, it's, that one of those moments that'll crystallize in your mind forever. You hear the pop, and it's not completely clear immediately what it is. But then I looked to my right and I saw immediately what it was, and I'll never forget it.
No. And Was there a thought? I mean, obviously Charlie's got great security that that I know got to him immediately. These guys are incredibly well trained. I know Dan. I know everybody. I know the whole team, and I'm sure they got him the medical attention immediately that he needed. Got him where he, to higher medical facilities at the hospital, and but just so when that happened, did it seem surreal in the sense? Did it seem like Butler? Did it seem like everyone sort of scatters, or was it just kind of as confusing as it sounds?
It was definitely confusing, but it was also, it was, how to describe it? It was clear what had happened. There was only one shot. We all immediately saw what had happened. You're correct. The security got him immediately, got him into the car immediately, got him out immediately. They could not have done their job on that front any better. And then at that point, it was, what do we do? And I know on my end, I think the first thing I did was I sent a message to, I opened Telegram and I went to our Turning Point thing and I said, lockdown Turning Point. I imagined they'd already seen it too, but I just said, lock it down. Something happened. Do it right ASAP. And then I'll be honest, I called my mom because I didn't know if there would be anyone else out there, if anything else would happen. So I just called my mom and said immediately, I can't say more, but Mom, Charlie got shot. I love you. I have to go. And then from there, I met up with some other members of the team. We got to the hospital within, I'd say, about 25 minutes or so. And the rest of the day unfolded from there.
Blake, you as a producer for Charlie, you worked so closely with him every single day and directly on, so much of the content that we all got to experience and enjoy as the beneficiaries of this work. I mean, what's running through your mind now in terms of not having Charlie?
It really does. It's painful to say, but he is irreplaceable. And people would ask about this, and I would say Charlie he's not just a show host. And that was what stood out about him. It's that he could be in everything. He was a guy in media. He was an organization builder. He could do Get Out the Vote. He could do grassroots outreach. He could do, he cared about all of the policy stuff. So he could go into the White House and talk to them about appointments, about policy, about what the Senate should be doing. He was in every part of it because he cared about all of it so much. The world of politics it's full of a lot of people who are in it for, they care a bit about, the issues, but they also care about themselves, about getting famous, about getting rich, about resolving some grievance. But Charlie, every single day, he was going all out for the things he cared about the most, which was how does he make America better? And also that he was a man of, deep Christian faith, and he wanted to advance Christianity. He wanted a spiritual revival in America. And truthfully, what I kept thinking of after the news broke was just before this tour happened, Charlie did a quick visit to Korea and Japan. He gave some speeches there. And so the last kind of normal, the last speech he gave was in Japan. And this is to an audience of conservative Japanese people. They're anti-immigration. They're they're Japanese nationalists. There's very few Christians in Japan. And I was telling Charlie about that. This is not your normal audience where it's going to be a lot of Christians. And he said, you know what, Blake, I would still like to provide some witness to Christian faith for these people. Where could we put that in? And we did. And he put it in there. He was saying, you guys have to save your country and you're going to need to believe in something transcendent, something eternal. And for me, that is my faith in Jesus Christ. And so the last speech Charlie gave, he was witnessing to Christianity, to an audience overwhelmingly of non-Christians. And then the last question he answered before, the one he was answering when the shooting happened, he was talking about his Christian faith with, it was, Mormonism versus Protestantism, but he was witnessing to the gospel there. And I know that if Charlie had to go the way he did, he would have wanted it to be while he was witnessing to Christ in that way.
There's no question. There's no question. That's obviously anyone who spent 5 minutes with Charlie would know that it's not politics that is his driving force. It's that, because he'd find a way to switch it to that, or once he got to know that you were into it, he would send you, hey Jack, here's this 5-hour course that I'm doing on the book of Genesis. You gotta listen to all 5 hours, and then let's talk about it, And that's what he was like. That's just what he was like, and constantly on fire for the Lord. And I've said it. I do consider him a Christian martyr. I really do.
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair. Or not even fair. No, it's just true. It's true. Charlie died a martyr for the two things he cared about most. He cared about the Christian religion, and he cared about the freedoms, the Constitution of the United States. He's a martyr to Christianity, and he's a martyr to the freedom of speech, that he so earnestly believed in the power of, going out, engaging with people. And it wasn't that he had to own every single lib. It was that, he would always say, one of the lines he would do when he was arguing with someone on campus is, we don't have agreement, but we have clarity. And he was always looking for that. He believes that when you debate, you learn more about the other person. You understand what motivates them. And that's a deeply humanizing thing about another person. And I think it's so powerfully symbolic of what we are against, that it was while he was doing that this
Blake,
heinous
I know
evil
you've
would strike him down like that.
I know you've got some logistics to run too. We're headed up to break here, but I'll see you soon, man. I just want to let you know I'll be there. I'll see you soon. Be right back. Jack Posobiec, we're here. Human Events Daily, Charlie Kirk Memorial Show, Washington, D.C. And when I look at the tributes coming out, by the way, I have to, something I haven't mentioned, the sports tributes. Charlie was an incredible sports fan. And Yankee Stadium put him up. Something completely outside of politics, but it didn't matter because Charlie was bigger than politics. He was an icon. And he just visited Wrigley Field, Chicago Cubs recently. Dream of his since he was young. Since he was young, but since he was a little boy. And you're starting to see even now athletes, people are sending me tweets and messages that are coming in where there were so many people in the sports world, in the corporate world, in the tech world, who were great fans of Charlie. And yet, because of the circumstances of the situation our country is in, they previously were not able to publicly voice that support because of what we've been living through in this country. And that's the saddest part of all. Because everything that Charlie Kirk did to get us out of the situation we were in is what led them to do this. They couldn't debate him, so they shot him. I want to bring Libby Emmons on now, editor-in-chief of the Post Millennial and a good friend of Charlie, as well as the editor of Human Events. Libby, how you holding up?
I'm finding this to be a difficult time. I'm sure that it's much more difficult for the people who are close to Charlie. An unforgettable presence, and certainly this is a loss the world will not soon forget. I think it's really interesting in telling what you're talking about with the sports figures who have come out and given their sadness and shared that grief with the world now that Charlie has passed. And you said something very interesting, which is that a lot of people did not feel that they were able to do that previously. And I think that attitude that we can, that we are cowed, that we will not speak out the truth, that we will hide what we really feel and really think, that we will let our, blue-haired cousins or our, HR departments or anybody else tell us what we can and cannot say, what we can and cannot think, that comes to an end. That comes to an end now, because there is absolutely no good reason when you look back on it, when you look back over the past 10 years or so, there's absolutely no good reason that we shouldn't all have been speaking up and speaking the truth and being honest and direct and forthright this entire time. There's no reason for it. There was no reason for it then, and there's no reason for it now. And if there's anything that we move forward with in terms of something to take from this, it is to speak out. It is to be honest. It is to be direct and forthright with a smile on your face. It is to share the word of God in your actions and in your deeds, and to do that unflinchingly, just unflinchingly. No more bowing, no more keeping silent because you're afraid of your friends. Absolutely, that comes to an end right now. If we all just speak up together, if we all have that courage, then they can't take us. Then there's nothing that can be done to silence us, because we would be too loud. As loud as a Turning Point event, frankly, because those things get really loud.
Well, that's right. And
yeah.
I know that Charlie would tell us exactly that. If he were here today, he would say, keep going. Be loud. Take up space. Get out there. Show them what you're made of. And don't back down. Because Charlie never backed down.
Yeah, no, and this is something I was talking to the
And he
Human
never
Events
stopped. He
columnist
just
about.
never stopped.
Yeah, I was talking to the Human Events columnist, and we yesterday had basically started putting together a tribute, something that we, I think, collectively hoped would be a giant get well card that we could send with a big teddy bear and balloons. And that, of course, changed as the day went on. But everybody had something to say. Everybody was touched by Charlie, whether they had met him or not, or just been to an event, or had seen his clips and seen what he was capable of and seen what he had done. Everyone had something to say. And there was, when I talked to our, columnist chat, and I said, we're going to need a column on Charlie, and everyone wanted to write it. Literally everyone wanted to write it, And so we gathered, Kenny Cody and I, the opinion editor, we gathered together everybody's thoughts and put that together. And you can read that on humanevents.com. It's something that I think is definitely worth taking the time to look at. And, I certainly hope that it's something that Charlie would like himself, ideally. That's who it's for.
Well, and Charlie's just always been such a supporter of the post-millennial, of human events, really integral, a story that we haven't really even told, to, taking those platforms to the next level. Just so much that he did behind the scenes to encourage new media, building institutions, taking things to the next level, even stuff that he didn't need his name on, didn't want his name on, didn't, because he wasn't about that. He didn't need his name on everything. He just wanted people to be doing well. And I think that was sort of, just one of his many, many incredible talents, that he truly lived for others and not himself.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that story of Charlie's hand in the post-millennial and human events, and bringing those two properties together, and then boosting them. I'm forever grateful to Charlie for that. And, for making it so that we can have this platform, and that all of my staff, who are wonderful people, are able to speak out and are able to write the truth. I think that's so important. And literally everyone on staff at Post Millennial had something positive to say. All of the editors and writers came together and shared their thoughts. And these were all personal memories. This isn't just like, Charlie Kirk is a great figure and I've seen him from afar. This was, Charlie Kirk is someone who touched my life personally. And I was very moved by what everyone had to say for that. And thinking back on the times that I was on Charlie's show a couple of times, I shared the stage with him once or twice, and every single time I was honored to be part of the thing that he was doing, quite frankly, because it always felt like something that was urgent and integral and really important for the future of this country that he loved, that I love, that we all love so much. And when I think back on, those times, he always was so generous with himself, with his intelligence. He was always direct and just so open and, willing
He
to
was always
share what
willing
he
to,
had
always
with
willing to share the
everybody.
spotlight too. Always
Mhm.
willing to share.
Yeah.
Libby Emmons, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your voice. I know it's a tough day to do this.
Thank you so much, Jack. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, this is not the end of the story. We're going to be wrapping for now, but this isn't the way the story ends. The story keeps going. The fight keeps going. We stay on mission. We lock in for Charlie. And we will respond to the people who did this. There was a debt. You robbed the world of Charlie. You robbed his family. You robbed his children. And the debt will be paid. It's as simple as that. But I wanted to end on this and to say, God bless you, Charlie. I will tell your children who you were. You fought the fight. You died with your boots on. And I know now you are in the presence of the King. Until we meet again, brother.